Tim Burton never really fit into Hollywood's mainstream, nor did he blend in with the proud wave of indie filmmakers. To the big studios, he was too weird and unpredictable, but to the art house scene, he was too successful, too well connected with A-list stars. This shaggy-haired, introverted guy somehow carved out a space for himself in a world where everyone says it's impossible to succeed without selling your soul. But Tim, he just makes the kind of movies he wants to see. And it works because every time his name is on a poster, we show up. And every time he gives us exactly the kind of feelings we came for. Hey everyone, Mick here. And today I'm going to tell you the story behind the making of Tim Burton's Corpse Bride. As always, if you learned something new from this video, drop a like. If not, hit that dislike. Let's get started.
Let's go back to the very beginning. Tim Burton came up with the idea for Corpse Bride a whole 10 years before he was able to bring it to life. There are a few different stories floating around about where the plot originated, but I did a deep dive, and here's the version that's most often credited as the true inspiration behind the film. The main concept was based on an old Jewish folktale. Burton first heard about it from director Joe Ranft right after they wrapped The Nightmare Before Christmas. Joe was certain Tim would love it. The story, called The Finger, was based on a 17th century text that compiled several traditional Jewish tales. It takes place in Russia, which is why some people think the film is based on Russian folklore. It's about a young groom who accidentally places a wedding ring on the finger of a corpse while reciting his vows. The corpse suddenly rises and proclaims, "My husband." Horrified, the man takes her to the local rabbi to annul the marriage. Once it's annulled, the corpse lets out a piercing scream and collapses into a pile of bones, never to return. Sounds familiar, right? That's almost exactly how Corpse Bride plays out. I actually tried really hard to track down the full text of that original folktale to show you, but after 3 hours of searching, no luck. It may have only ever been passed down orally, but one thing's certain. Burton himself confirmed in an interview that this tale was the starting point for the movie. After hearing it, Tim immediately started imagining how to turn it into a feature film. Of course, the story went through a lot of changes along the way. For example, his screenwriters crafted a more family-friendly ending, and the setting was shifted from Russia to a fictional version of Victorian England.
In 2003, Burton sent the script for Corpse Bride to a Spanish artist, along with some of his personal sketches showing what he imagined the characters would look like. And the final designs didn't end up too far off from those early drawings. You might have noticed that Victor, the main character, looks a lot like Johnny Depp, and that's who voiced him. But Burton insists it's pure coincidence. According to him, the characters were designed long before they ever decided on voice actors.
Now let's get to the good stuff. To bring 30 main characters to life on screen, the puppet makers at McKinnon & Saunders built a whopping 300 puppets, including 14 different Emilys and around 10 Victors. The most expensive puppet cost Burton a staggering $30,000. Before Corpse Bride, facial expressions in stop-motion films were usually created by swapping out faces or mouths. But Burton wanted to try something brand new, a technique that had only been used in a few commercials at the time. Instead of swapping heads, the team built mechanical heads filled with tiny gears. Think of the inner workings of a Swiss watch. Animators could insert miniature keys into a character's ear or the back of their head, and by turning them, they could subtly adjust facial expressions. This method gave the animators way more control and let them create incredibly detailed performances. For example, inserting a key into Victor's right ear might make him smile, while moving it to the left would make him frown. The animators also faced a huge challenge with Emily's veil. When she first appears, she dramatically tosses it aside, and throughout the film, it flows behind her as if she's underwater. Some shots used CGI, but for most of the film, the veil was animated frame by frame using traditional stop motion. To make it look realistic and fluid, they stitched ultra-thin wires into the fabric. You probably didn't catch this detail, but there's a clever Easter egg in the movie. When Victor is playing the piano just before he meets the corpse bride, look closely.
There's an engraving on the piano that says Harryhausen. It's a tribute to Ray Harryhausen, the godfather of stop-motion animation, who brought monsters like skeletons, hydras, and dinosaurs to life in classic films from 1959 to 1981.
And remember the character Bonejangles, the one-eyed skeleton with the giant jaw who loves to sing? Danny Elfman, who composed the music for the film, originally imagined him with a deep, raspy voice. They auditioned 27 people, but only 3 made it to the final round. And even then, the studio wasn't satisfied. So Tim Burton just gave the role to Elfman himself. Yep, Danny wrote the music and voiced the character. Like most stop-motion films, Corpse Bride was originally going to be shot on traditional film. But just 2 weeks before production began, Burton made a historic decision. Encouraged by 2 of his producers, he agreed to use digital cameras. Once the team realized they could preview their shots instantly, everyone jumped on board. That made Corpse Bride the first ever feature-length stop-motion film shot entirely on digital cameras.
Here's one last little known fact. Danny Elfman actually wrote a solo song for Victor, a sad tune meant to show his longing for his fiancée in the land of the living. The song was good, but it was cut from the final version to keep the film's runtime tight. But I managed to find it, and I'll leave a link in the video description if you want to check it out. So what's the takeaway? Corpse Bride made animation history. It was the first stop-motion film shot digitally. Production took 55 weeks, and the crew shot over 109 million frames. They had 22 animators, each working at a pace of just 6 seconds of footage per week. All the puppets were made of stainless steel and stood at around 12 inches tall. And it was the first stop-motion film ever edited using Apple's Final Cut Pro. What's your favorite Tim Burton movie? Drop it in the comments. Maybe you'll introduce me to one I haven't seen yet. That's it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so YouTube actually lets you know when I drop a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.